this is Trip. Welcome to Homegrown Mushroom Cultivation Beginners Class. I'm going to have a series of 6 videos over the next 6 weeks that's going to show you how to grow mushrooms at home. So the first thing I'd like you to do is get a journal or a notebook, and you can get that right now. You can put the video on pause and go get a journal, because I do want you to take notes if you are a beginning mushroom cultivator. I'm going to try to go through these in order of how we need them, so you don't have to be overwhelmed by ordering everything at once. You can order your grain in your jars, or your beginning stuff for the spawn grain phase now, and then in a couple of weeks we'll order the substrate and get that ready for the second phase. So the first thing you need to do is get your inoculant and decide what kind of mushrooms you want to grow. So we're going to come over here and I'm going to introduce you to the inoculants. So once you decide what kind of mushrooms you want to grow, grow something easy. Don't pick something really hard like shiitake right out of the gate. Pick something like oysters or lion's mane or chestnut. Something fairly easy to grow, because I want you to have success on your first grow. Even some of the spiritual mushrooms are really easy to cultivate. So what they sell out there, if you Google on the internet mushroom liquid cultures, you'll find a whole bunch of companies that sell mushroom liquid cultures. And this is what a mushroom liquid culture is. It's basically a syringe filled with already live mycelium. The mycelium has been germinated and grown out so that when it hits the grain, which you're going to inoculate these are grain jars, you're going to inoculate right here and put like half of that into the jar. It will colonize, and it will become all white like this. That's a fully colonized jar of mycelium, and that's what you want it to look like. Okay, so the inoculant, I have here some blue oysters, some pink oysters, some chestnuts, some lion's mane, and some cauliflower mushroom. So pick what mushroom you want to grow first and get the inoculants ordered. We're going to need those in about 2 weeks. So start on that probably this week. And then the next thing you need to worry about is the grain. Because what we're going to do in this first phase is we're going to inoculate grain jars. And those are the grain jars right there. Or grain bags. Now you can buy these grain bags. Let's go back over here. You can buy these grain bags also on the internet, on Amazon, on Etsy. Lots of places sell them. And where is it? This is a grain bag. And what it is, it's just a plastic bag. This is heat-proof. Polypropylene, that's what it's made out of. And this is an air filter, and this is grain down here. So you can buy these pre-made and pre-sterilized. You can also buy the all-in-one grow bag, which I don't have one here, but basically what it is it's the grain, just like in this bag, and then on the top half sits the substrate. Substrate means your soil, what you're going to grow in and what you're going to fruit in. And it sits with both of those things in the bag, and the concept of that is to be able to grow mushrooms without opening the bag until the end. I prefer doing it the grain bag method, just getting the grain bag for starters and inoculating that and leave the substrate out of it and mix that up later. Okay, so this is the grain bag. So you have 2 options. You can get, if you don't get these pre-sterilized and pre-made, they're about $20 a bag. They're kind of expensive. And if you run into contamination, it can get pricey. You can make your own grain instead. And you will need some jars or some bags. These are the bags that are empty. And you'll need some jars or bags to fill. And you'll need to pick your grain. I like using white millet grain. because it's very small, so it has a lot of surface area to it. Let's see if you can see that. Millet grain is a very small little grain. It's like known as bird seed. A lot of people use that for bird seed. So what you do basically is you get the grain, you soak it, and then you sterilize it and put it in the jars and bags and sterilize it. So what do you need to sterilize with? A lot of these items you're going to find that are in your house already. So you won't need to buy all of this stuff probably. But the first thing you need to look at is a pressure cooker. And they have all kinds of pressure cookers out there. The best ones have a gauge on them. This is one of my pressure cookers. Has a gauge, a timer, and a release valve. And it seals shut with a clamp. And in this one, you can fit 10 1-quart jars. This is a pretty big one. You don't need this big. You only need to sterilize about 6 jars. And you can do that in an Instapot if you have one. Or you can do it in a pressure cooker that sits on your stove. But the best kind to buy are the ones with the gauges on them. That way you know, because sterilization happens at 15 psi. And this way you know when you hit that 15 psi when to start your time. This pot does that automatically for you. This pot doesn't quite reach 15 psi. You have to add time to your cook in order to get the proper sterilization. But it's about 10 minutes of time per 30 that you add. So if you're going to do an hour-long sterilization, you'd add 30 minutes to that. Or no, an hour and 20 minutes to that. Sorry. Okay, so you need to get a pressure cooker if you're going to do your own grain. Like I said before, I want you to know the distinguish between the two. If you're going to buy your own grain bags, you don't need to get these pressure cookers and grain and all this stuff. So that's another question you have to answer and decide for. So the 2 questions I need you to ask yourself is what kind of mushroom you want to grow. Research that and find out which one you want to grow. And then, are you going to buy your grain bags already sterilized and pre-made, or are you going to make your own? In the long run, you save a lot more money making your own. These bags are like $20 each, and they can get quite pricey if you run into contamination problems. Okay, so let's go over some of the things you'll need to make grain jars or bags. You'll need empty jars. These are ball jars. These are 1-quart ball jars. Any size jar will do. Just remember, the bigger the jar, the more if it goes bad, you lose a lot of grain. So I like to work with about the quart jars. And then there's the grow bag, the mushroom grow bag, which looks like this, empty. And it has an air exchange filter patch on it, because when you're in the spawn grain phase, you like to have a little bit of ventilation in the bag. But these come out looking like this. I showed you some earlier. And you put on top of them, you drill 2 holes in the lid, you put an inoculation port, and you put a filter disc. And those are things you can buy on Amazon. It's really cheap, only like $5 a pack. And they look like this. So these are filter discs. And these are inoculation ports. So like that, and they're adhesive. So they stick onto the jar real easy. Okay, so let's talk about some of the smaller things we're going to need before we go to the tubs. You're going to need some type of thermometer. You can get any kind. You're going to need a torch lighter. You're going to need a timer. I hope you're writing these down. You're going to need a Sharpie. You can gather all these ahead of time because you're going to need them at some point. Here's another type of temperature. You can use any kind of temperature gauge. And it's nice to have a relative humidity gauge too. Those are called hygrometers, just in case. But you don't need that piece of equipment yet. You need a fan. You need some isopropyl alcohol. I use 70%. 70% dissipates slower than the 90%. so it stays on the surface longer. And for alcohol to work thoroughly, it has to stay on the surface of whatever you spray it onto for like a minute and a half. And then you can wipe it down. But the 70% stays on longer. The 90% will evaporate within that minute. So you want to, not all of it, but some of it will. You want to use the 70% isopropyl alcohol. Okay, you need some tinfoil, a spade or shovel. You need a measuring cup. Let's see here. You need some gloves, latex or nitrite, either one. And then you need to get some spray bottles. And one is going to be for water. One is going to be for isopropyl alcohol. The third one's optional. If you want to get some hydrogen peroxide, you can get a third bottle. But these are the only two you really need. And the isopropyl alcohol is for cleaning stuff. The water, get the bottles that are fine mist. They spray really super fine mist. It says it right there on the Amazon ad if you get them from Amazon. It's a fine mist sprayer. Okay, let's see what else. Now, scoot this stuff back. Okay, the next thing you're going to need also is a colander. Something to drain your grain in when you're done soaking it and cooking it. Or soaking it, I mean. You can also use this to stir your substrate. You can use the shovel and mix by hand, a little spade, but you can also use, this is a drill with a paint mortar on the end of it. It's really nice for mixing soil. Your arm will thank you later. Okay. Next, you need to get 2 tubs. Now, it depends on what kind of mushroom you're going to grow. What kind of tub you want to get. If it's a mushroom that goes high, you want to get a deep tub. One like this. And you want to make sure you get ones with a clear lid. Okay, but think of this. I mean, your substrate's going to fill about this much level of your tub, and your mushroom's probably going to take up this much level, and you want to be able to have a little headspace left over. The mushroom has room and air, grow. Some people drill holes in these tubs and put filter patches over them to improve the ventilation. You don't have to do that. I grow them sometimes without. I usually grow in a different kind of style called Martha Tech, but I have grown in monotubs before, so you can make them work. What else? You need a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it to help do your soil mixing, your substrate mixing. You may or may not need pH strips. If you have them around the house, that's good. If not, you don't need to worry about spending money on that right now. Later on, if you get a lot of contamination, we'll get you some pH strips. And then if you're going to do the mushroom grow bags, these, you need an impulse sealer. And this is an impulse sealer. And you just put your bag in there without the cord, of course, sticking in that part where it heats up. And you just press it down and it seals the bag. And once you get your grain all cooked and soaked, you put it in here and then you sterilize it. So the whole inside of the bag is a clean, sterile bag with no organisms living in it. Okay, what else are you going to need? Oh, this. You're going to need like a big basting pan or baking pan. And you're going to cook your substrate in this. You're going to need a big pot to boil your grain in. These are only things you need if you're going to be doing your own grain. Remember, if you're buying your bags again, you just need the bags, and they're already sterilized and prepared. Okay, so I think we went over all of that stuff. let's go over the substrate. Okay, so the soil that we grow our mushrooms in is called substrate. And there's different substrates for different mushrooms that are good. So you have to kind of research what your mushroom grows on, if it's a hard wood-loving mushroom, or if it's one that can grow in coco coir. It all depends on what kind of mushroom you have. You don't need to buy the substrate for a couple of weeks now, and you don't need to get these big of portions. Just get enough to fill your 2 tubs with about that much substrate on both. So, I mean, you want to get like maybe the 2-pound or 5-pound bag. These are like 50-pound bags and 25-pound bags. But anyways, you need some coco coir. This is coconut pith, and it's really good soil substrate for substrate because it absorbs and holds a lot of water. And you add that with vermiculite, which is this, and that in addition makes the soil more moisture holding. We also have organic gypsum. You add that in to help the composition of the soil. And if you have a wood-loving mushroom, you want to use hardwood pellets. This is oak hardwood pellets. They have all kinds of different, hardwood pellets. They have soy pellets. Mushrooms grow good on those too. And then for a casing layer, I use straw. And this one happens to be already pre-sterilized. It's a mushroom growing, made for mushroom growing, mushroom cultivation. Okay, I'm trying to look and see what else I missed. I did get the fan, right? You have to get a fan to help dry your grain a little bit. And I think that's it. So the 2 questions: what kind of mushroom? And are you going to buy your own grain bags pre-sterilized, or are you going to make them yourself? And then you know what on this list you need to buy. I think that's it. The only other thing I want to show you is this. This is called a still air box. And what it is it's just a tub turned upside down. And inside here are gloves. So there's a piece of PVC pipe sealed with gloves. So inside of here is completely sealed off from the outside elements. And what the concept of it is you want to get what you're working on, you're going to inoculate inside of here. You get that inside the tub, then you close it, wait a few minutes for the particles to settle because there's no wind, so they're going to all fall to the bottom. And then you inoculate your bags or work on your agar or whatever you're doing. But you see these a lot used in the beginning for people. They're also known as a SAB, S-A-B, still air box. That's what that stands for. So you're going to need some sort of that. You can make really cheap ones. There's a whole bunch of videos on the internet, on YouTube, that'll tell you how to make a SAB. Okay, so the last question you have to ask yourself is, where am I going to grow? Well, you have to have a place in your house that's fairly sterile, preferably without carpeting. But I know sometimes this is hard to avoid. But the carpeting carries a lot of particles and contamination. Every time you step on it, some comes up into the air and goes airborne. So that's why you want to grow without the carpet. You don't need those particles in the air. One other thing I want to mention is a HEPA filter. HEPA filters are good to clean the particles out of your air, and just clean your general workspace will stay cleaner. Okay, so once you ask yourself where you're going to grow, you need to find a place in your house. Closets work really well if you ventilate them. And this is my spawn closet I use. It's empty right now, I'm just filling it, but it has my liquid cultures in it. Has a heater at the bottom. A stir plate, because in each one of my liquid cultures there's a magnetic stir bar. You stir them every day, but we're not doing liquid cultures right now. And then a thermostat. So this one controls the heater down there. And this whole room is ventilated by a plastic door with a HEPA filter in the bottom. And the bottom of the HEPA filter sticks out. So it sucks air from the outside and pushes it in. And then I just close this up and it stays insulated. Okay, so then the fruiting phase comes after the grain spawn phase. You need this for grain spawn. You don't need a big closet to do it. You can do it in a cupboard. You can do it in an ice box, ice chest with a heating pad in it. Because you have to maintain a certain temperature, a little over room temperature. But once you find out where you're going to grow, you need to make sure it's sterile. It's always a good idea to change all your HVAC filters in the house before you start cultivating mushrooms, just to assist with taking particles out of the air. And then I grow in grow tents. You can grow anywhere in your house. All you need is ambient light. You could grow on your dresser, in your computer room. You don't need to get that fancy. It just needs to have, like, when daylight hours are on, to have some light in it. This is what I grow in. This is a Myco tent, and I grow Martha Tech style. But it has a CO2 monitor, has air input, it has air exhaust, it has a humidifier that shoots the humidity up, and lots of shelves and light. You don't need something this fancy. I'm just showing you what mine looks like. You do need to have those elements if you're growing Martha Tech, which you're not going to be doing, so you don't need the humidifier and the air exhaust. You're going to be doing all this manually. This is when you want to graduate and grow more mushrooms and get to a more automated state. But yeah, you got to find a good place to grow in your house. So, hopefully you took good notes. If you have any questions, you can put it in the comments below or message me if you need help deciding what kind of mushroom you want to grow. I recommend people grow oysters or chestnuts. Even lion's mane isn't too hard. Something easy. Even some of the spiritual mushrooms are really easy to cultivate. So whatever kind of mushroom you're going to grow, pick one that's easy because I want you to succeed. So sometimes the harder mushrooms that are harder to cultivate, more sensitive to temperatures and humidity, they will fail maybe your first time, and I don't want you to get discouraged by that. So that's all you need for mushroom cultivation. If you're going to dry your mushrooms and use them for cooking or something else, you can get a dehydrator. This is a dehydrator, has shelves in it. And that's about it. So like I said, any questions, put in the comments. I'll try to answer everyone. And that's it for this segment. So work on getting your grain bags together and your inoculant. And we will see you next week, where we're going to learn how to sterilize our own grain, if we're doing that, or inoculate the bags and the jars. So tune in for next Saturday. Thanks a lot. This is Trip, and I'm out.